Hey, how's it going? I'm gonna read some cards, but I would like you to look at some signs first, because, you know, you never know what I might say. And I apologize for that. So I pulled a total of 3 cards. And the first card I pulled was from the Shaman's Dream Oracle deck. I hold it still. So, I'm really congested again, as usual. I'm so sorry for that. Okay, so, the card I pulled from Shaman's Dream Oracle deck was Woodwives, and the subtitle is Adaptability. So this, actually all of the cards presented a little bit of a challenge. It wasn't like I could just look at it and be all of this. Well, I mean, I'm going to let you look at it, but first I'm going to get my silly little notes here. Okay, that's out of order. Shoot. I should have done this before I started, huh? Oh well. Next time. Oh, what is the story? Oh, I should have pulled off all of those little shaggies. Well, which one? Okay. There's not a page 1. Oh, there it is. Okay. So, here, take a look at this. I'm going to point out some things that I'm going to talk about in my notes. So, trying to get it so there's not a glare. Okay, so to me this is a female figure, and she's sitting on a stump, and I don't know why. Well, I mean, I guess I do know why. I feel like it's still living, because they cut off the top and not the roots. So, I mean, it could completely still be alive. And there's lots of stuff with just tendrils of growth coming off of it in this picture. Like, right there from the stump. And it might be slightly disturbing, but it does look like she's sort of becoming one with the stump. And I was having some confusion. I mean, is this inside or outside? Because there seems to be like a typical, like, Anderson glass window in the background there where the light's flooding in. And it might be, it's right there. See how it arcs? And then it seems to have like if you go to a suburb, something like this is going to be fairly typical above a door, or is going to extend all the way down further and become a series of squares, like a window. And so it's just like, if the sun is shining in, then the inside of their house looks like the outside, which I think is something we should all seriously consider. Like, rather than bringing in Anderson glass, I apologize to that company. It's just a window name I can remember. I don't have like bad feelings about them. I mean, I'll give them a non-Yelp review and give them a 5 out of 5. Like, it's not an insult to them. It's just the name I happen to remember. So, anyway, yeah, I feel like our housing should be more reflective of like where we end up, like where we end up with our stuff, instead of introducing like stucco buildings with all kinds of metal and stuff reaching into the ground. I mean, I know there has to be sewage and people want power and stuff like that, but I feel like figuring out ways to live with nature, like using nature's features to, I was thinking focal point, I'm like, get that out of the way, that's not right. So like natural features and using like what nature discards, you know, like we know how to manufacture a lot of stuff in a lot of ways. There's probably a gazillion things that can be done with fallen leaves that we just haven't even thought of, because we'll just go make a chemical that's about the same composition of a pulverized fallen leaf mixed with other compounds that don't have to be, you know, malign, you know, or malignant. I don't know. It's just a thought, but I have it a lot. So, it's interesting though. So like she's in her not outhouse, outside on the inside house. And she's standing there and she's tending something, and it's interesting too, this sort of work area station business, and it's at such a strange angle, really, because it should be up a little bit higher for an adult doing stuff. Like I'm sitting down in a wheelchair, so this is not the optimal position for a counter. Oh, I'm sorry. It's supposed to be, but for me it's not. I don't know how they could make it generic for everyone that could happen to live here, though. So anyway, if I were standing, though, it would be about the right height for a person to stand and work at for however long, like an extended period. You know, that might happen. You might have to like take shells off a bunch of peas or strings out of a bunch of string beans, something, but you could just be at the counter workstation for an extended period of time. And I looked at it and I thought of the angle, and I was like, well, now it kind of looks like a changing station. So this area here, I'm going to talk about, or I did talk about in my notes, so I'm going to leave that for there. But also, behind this person, I see another figure, barely discernible. It looks to me as if they're guiding them somehow, the woman. You can see sort of a headrest situation, or not headrest, headpiece, like a crown-ish type thing, or a headdress. And it's very faint in the background, but there's even, like, I made out two legs standing just behind her, so it looks as if it's like a male, because he's taller and everything, like his head is bigger and his arms are bigger around and all that, like it's a male. So he's like got, it seems like either his hand on the back of her neck or on her shoulder, and then the other hand is sort of blending in with her more human hand. And I always thought it looks like it's turning into a stick, but she's doing something. So I'm gonna let you take another look at it. So once I start reading, you can have get off of there. You can have a better idea of what I'm referring to. And I'm gonna put it very close right now so you can look at that red area. And we're gonna revisit that. Get your pareidolia on and look at that red area. Okay. Woodwives. 64, number 64. So 6 and 4. if you add them, is 10, and we'll eliminate the 0 and end up with a 1. I just talked about this yesterday. The 1, the greatest and maker of all that is. You know, the one. That one. Sorry. Let's not get distracted. Adaptability is the subtitle. As always, I'm reading this card differently from the last time I pulled it. The word wives is right there in the name of the card and is prominent today, the day of the viewing of it. The wife is dedicated to nature, and so much so that she's adapting physically to her surroundings, taking it to the extreme, merging with her surroundings, it looks like, in the card's rendering. That seems to show the person on there blending at the legs with what must be a still living stump. The Peacock Original Series Mrs. Davis has been on my mind a lot because I have someone I want to watch it with. Remember to put numbers on it this time. It's about a nun, to keep it short and to the subject I'm conveying here. I often find myself considering the nun, the wives of Jesus. What an interesting concept. A rabbit hole for later, but like, he needs all the wives. Why now? Like, what is up with that? And what does Mary think about all these wives? I don't know how to look into that, but I think I need to. I don't know if it says it in the Bible or what, but I mean, that seems like a much later kind of creation by the church. But, I mean, there's been nuns for a long time. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. The idea of wedding a non-corporeal being is a heavy concept. Like the idea of sympathizing so well with another object/being that your vibrations sync, allowing the physicality of both. I wrote this weird, so I'm just going to read it. Allowing the physicality of both can sink into one another. Allowing the physicality of both to sink into one another. I don't know why it can. Weird. That necessarily will, but that person, those beings on another dimension than the one they'd been in prior to the marriage of parts. Whoa. I know what I was trying to say there. Let me see if I can translate that. Because the vibrations of two, like a being/object, like the woman and the stump, they can become so sympathetic, like she's so in tune with the nature spirit, which is what I kind of call the masculine figure kind of guiding her along into her transition. So for someone to come along and catch sight of that melding, that's what I'm referring to. So that necessarily will, but that person who's viewing these beings on another dimension than the one they'd previously been in, like before they decided to like marry their parts, to sort of be in two places at once is an unnerving to anyone not along on the journey. They can't, for reasons, they can't sympathize, they can't understand. Like, if you just walked up on it and you have no idea what's happening, that's kind of what I was trying to get at. I don't know why I wrote it so hard to understand. The same ones that don't allow them to vibrate at the same speed as the image before them, who inadvertently glimpses the joining of the woman on the card, making herself less human and more tree. It's scary to look upon, or it would be scary to look upon, and would be seen by our onlooker as monstrous. It could send someone uninitiated running back to the other residents of their village that they'd seen witchery, shape-shifting, evil, a witch. Our onlooker may have even caught sight of the semi-transparent, shadowy figure standing just behind our wife figure on the card. The figure has its hands on her as it seems to guide one arm and hand toward what looks to be an amber red conglomeration in the basin or tabletop situation in front of them both. Upon closer inspection, I saw it in the redness so reflective of flames. Do I discern a pudgy, baby-like appendage sort of separated from the larger volume of red by an arm-like extension whose ends meet at fat, red, five-fingered paw? Adorbs. The other extends back to the mass, which has a head with eyes, and the rest of it a chubby baby body. So that is this redness that I was saying to remember this for later. So God, I wish I didn't have to squint like a pirate. There, right above the top of the end of this pen thing, is the five-fingered fat baby hand I was talking about. Look at that. Can you see it? I mean, it actually has 5 little dimples around that fat little biscuit. And there's the arm extension part I was talking about, going back into this whole red business. And right there, with 2 little ears sticking up, like a baby wearing like a animal ear hat, and some fiery eyes, like yellow right there, and a little mouth. I mean, it looks like a little gremlin, and it's interesting that it's either the color of fall leaves, red, or fire, and it's like Woodworld. What is that? Like, this kid's gonna be trouble. Yeah, so, I bet I lost my place. Oh, here we go. Upon closer inspection, I saw the redness so reflective of flames. Do I discern a pudgy baby-like appendage? Oh, I already read all of that. Okay, sorry. Had the unlikely couple been captured during an intimate private moment? Was the peeper unduly privy to a perpetuation of another version of a virgin birth a la Jesus, Mary, and Joseph? Opinion commentary. People that get too excited or very excited about the use of the Holy Family's names. I'm just saying, did a non-corporeal being and a very much material one, were they able to miraculously spawn a living being into existence again? Don't take my musing as sacrilege, please. It's the illustration on a piece of paper designed to be used in a way that opens minds. Not the devil, it's not the devil, and it works through our inspiration, which comes from spirit, like God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, and imagination. So please don't be upset if that kind of thing would upset you. That which gives us the power to create, like God. A God-given talent, you might say. So, those are my impressions of the Woodwives card. But the reference to Mrs. Davis, that Peacock show, she is a nun, and her deal is very much about being a wife of Jesus, and she has a relationship with him. And the way you hear that spoken of, if you grow up in like the Catholic world like I did, you hear stuff like that said all the time, like non-corporeal beings being the husband of a bunch of wives, a bevy of wives, a harem. What is up with that? Why he's got married? Why does he need all these other wives? Like, why is he the captain of the Holy Lonely Hearts Club? Like, I don't know how to look that up, but I've set it into the algorithm twice now, so maybe it'll come to me. Anyway, how am I doing on time? Ooh, not bad at all. Okay, so I also pulled a couple of cards from the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit deck. And the first was Eagle. So I will read you my notes on that. And it says in the book, Transforms Karma, and this is what I was thinking. Ability to see more clearly and from a greater height than you or I who can't fly. Allows for greater visibility of where they are on the ground than way up high. A reminder that up can see more than directly. Oh, up can see more that may directly affect us. Oh. What the? Oh, okay, I guess I need to pontificate on that. So, I think this speaks to all of us. Okay. Thinking about the perspective from which we're looking at something or seeing and experiencing something, like the person accidentally coming upon, like that mystical, intimate bonding ceremony session, whatever that was, with the woodwife and the shadowy wood sprite husband. Like, tending to their strangely fiery baby. Maybe that was not something they were meant to see, and rather than flipping out and going all scared of the supernatural the way I talked about, that person could also take a moment and realize, maybe don't be looking at people's windows, and understand that, like, at the very least, you have come upon something that you should be respectful of, like the forest, and it's fragile and tender, and running out of it in a panic and then causing other people to run in with a panic with pitchforks and torches into the forest, no es bueno. El fuego no es bueno. So, I think this is, and what I just said, like my little parable or whatever that I just made up, is meant to make us aware of the fact that whatever we're witnessing and seeing, like, it might not be as extreme a case as what this person came upon here, but to these people, or the people he's seeing, it's that big of a deal. So that's something else to add to your perspective, as instead of like running away in panic, maybe go up into higher vibrational thoughts about the whole situation. And the other card I pulled was Starfish. So this one I'm going to read you what the book says about it just quickly. It's not what my impression was, which I will get to what my impression was starfish, beautiful, alluring, superficial, or shallow. Well, that's where you find them. You know, I mean, they go deep, but you can also find them, well, I've never found one, but I have seen pictures of places that you can just walk up and be all, whoa, there is a starfish in the tidal pool. Pluck. I don't know if I would pick it up. I think I would just leave it, but I would sure love to see it. I miss the beach. Sidetrack. Herd me back to where, okay. The starfish is a natural and exquisite beauty, mesmerizing to all. Being around someone with starfish energy is a thrill. Like you've been put under a spell of divinity. It's, I don't know why, I just thought of Brad Pitt. The problem is, these creatures have been reliant on how they look and what other people think of them for so long that they may have forgotten their deeper callings. When this card appears, it's important to ask, am I being swayed by outward appearances? What dreams have I put aside to please others? That last line, I think, is something we can all drum up something inside of ourselves that can attach to that or align with it. Like, it's just kind of the way our society's built. Like, we're constantly having to give up our power just to do basic things. Like, you know, you're already going to work and putting in your part, your contribution to this company, and yes, they're paying you for your time, and if you're lucky, you're getting insurance to make sure that you're able to be able when putting in your time. And I mean, isn't it a win-win if you can show up longer and not be hurt or like infect other people or in some other way like slow down the company? You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes sense to me. But tiny sidetrack here. It's the money power thing. The more you get, the further removed you get from sort of everyone else's reality, because everyone else, there's more everyone else than there are of like the super rich people. But boy, that's trying to like catch up and even out, and I don't see how that's gonna be a good thing given what I'm about to say. But it is easier, I think, and I think this is why it happens. I think it's easier to enjoy your money and power if you don't have to think compassionately. If you don't have to think too hard about what people are doing for you and what they have to go through to be able to be there to do it for you, for instance. And they don't want to hear about like people dying in your family or people getting sick and you being the mom and you have to go home, or you being the dad and you have to go because you have the car. Like, whatever it is, that's just an excuse, and it's like a bump in the road and you're like harshing their buzz. And I think this is all speculation. I have no idea if this is really true, but it's kind of like looks like it's the case after like years of watching it. But it seems like it's easier to like enjoy your wealth if you're just kind of crappy to everyone that has to do stuff for you to enhance your enjoyment, basically. So it's like a really weird place to be, I think. And then also, if you come from modest means, then it's just kind of awful. Like, but also, it's like expected. It seems perfectly a horrible way to be, especially if you started out again with modest means to turn into this person that's like to fit in, I guess, as a nouveau riche. With people that have not had the modest means experience and have no concept like the people that think it's like an excuse because your parent is dying and you want to go see them in the hospital for their last, time on earth, and it's like begrudgingly given, if at all, and then it's like, punitary because you come back and your hours could be screwed, or like less, or screwed because more. It's like capitalism, like that's perfectly and a perfectly acceptable way to behave. And it just kind of blows my mind that you could make such a transition and become such a soulless person. Moving on. So, being around someone with starfish energy is a thrill, like you've been put under a spell of divinity itself. The problem is, these creatures have been reliant on how they look and what other people think of them, oh man, for so long that they've forgotten their deeper callings, like their past. When the card appears, referring to the rich people, okay, I'm like, explaining stuff that I'm saying in this conversation I'm having in my head, also because I'm all thinking of Brad Pitt. Not that he is shallow or anything like that. He's not, from everything I've seen, but he does have that appearance, so am I being swayed by outward appearances? What dreams have I put aside to please others? Yeah, that I don't want to get stuck in that loop again, but what do we have to eat? What do we have to swallow? Like, what dreams, what feelings do we have to just like get rid of immediately in order to function in this world that's not very compassionate or nice? When in balance, uplifting, artistic, expressive. When out of balance, gossips, feels empty. To bring into balance, positive friends. Okay, so I just have a little bit more to say about the starfish, and then I will wrap it up. I will cut it out. Sorry. The starfish as a personality is something that isn't something it's ever occurred to me to consider. Heightened sensorily. The heightened sensorily. They represent heightened senses. Should have just said that. The underside of a starfish, I don't know if you know this, but because this is what I think of as a starfish, and I was looking at it and thinking star, and thinking the wrong, well, maybe not wrong, but the pattern on it is almost, well, it probably just is sacred geometry on an actual starfish, and the rendering on this card is not bad. It does invoke that thought in me, and I have seen starfish, and things coming together, click, in the old braino. But do you think much about the underside of them? Have you seen what they look like? I was watching some nature documentary one time, and it was like the migration of the starfish, and that's what I was thinking of when I was talking about the shallows and the tidal pools, and where the places where I have lived, I didn't see them the way I talked about. In this documentary, I don't know what you call a whole bunch of starfish, a herd, a flock, but there's a bunch of them, and they were traveling en masse. And if you've seen the original Poltergeist with Craig S. Nelson, there's a scene where the house is screwing with him, and there's a piece of raw steak that's on the kitchen counter, and it just sort of creeps along, starts doing that. For some reason, I saw that with my mom, and for some reason that creeped us both out the most out of the whole movie. But if you have seen that, then that is the kind of motion they would do moving along, and you pretty much would see only the top of them. But in the documentary, they actually flip them over and let you see the bottom, and it's a bunch of little, I'm gonna just read this. The underside of the starfish is all these little finger-like kind of stumpy, for a human, appendages. They work at once to propel, they use them to work all at the same time to propel themselves. Like fingers, they are extraordinarily sensitive. Ever notice a starfish has 5 spires or extensions that are used as a unit, as the top of one indicates? Like, you think it's just all like a finger, and then 5 high. Your hand has 5 finger-like appendages. So they're situated differently on a starfish, and just looking at the top, you'd think it was just like my hand. Like, my hand doesn't have anything but these appendages, and so they're going to work together to do something like that. As the top view of one indicates, so I just talked about that. The starfish has 5 spires or extensions that are used as a unit as the top view of one indicates. The movement of one extension takes the effort of thousands of the little finger guys underneath. It's both individual and collective. You know what else is very much like that? Our bodies. All of the beings that can move have skeletal or cartilage or even less solid structures, but around them is like your musculature and your cartilage and I don't know what all else. I'm just trying to make a point. All of these different systems have to work together to like make this happen, right? Starts in here, and then all of these things, like pull this lever, move this pulley, and block this fulcrum or whatever, you know? So, but on the starfish, it's all these little fingy things. I think that it's also a pentagram, which is not a bad thing necessarily. Depends, like the spire, the single spire sticking up, that's your good pentagram. And then if it were this way though, and it had the 2 leg appendages facing upward, well, that's your horns, that's your goat, that's your devil thing. So just, you know, there's always all these images and things involved with this sort of woo-woo spiritual stuff. And it's good to point out the differences, I think, because you could inadvertently find yourself saying or doing something that is evil or just, you know, not cool to be doing to somebody else. All kinds of star talk. So, I feel like this really kind of is the thing that's important here. And I feel like in America we have this contingent of conservative people and politicians that are really pushing for the right to be able to walk by your window and not seeing anything that's untoward to them, that offends them. And that is a kind of low vibrational way to be thinking, because that's not particularly loving or compassionate. It's very controlling, and I just pushed those underneath. I sure did. And that's like unattractive, unpleasant. Nobody likes to be, well, I was gonna say nobody likes to be completely controlled, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just being able to move about freely in your life as a human. That doesn't mean to be hurting anybody else. You just want to do the things that you signed up to do, and, you know, keep to your own belongings and opinions, and that, I mean, you can certainly have them, but you have to be thoughtful about the way you express them and things like that, because you might end up in a situation or a confrontation that you never intended, even though we do have that right here. And if you want to know who or what I'm talking about, there's one person right now that kind of totally encapsulates this, like, this need to control and know other people's business. And it's the current, and I bet really temporary, Speaker of the House, this Mike Jones character. But he's just, you know, someone, there's many voices like his in Congress. Like, I thought Mike Pence was extreme. This guy's a little bit more that, which is, it's his right to be that, and also where he is now. Thank you and good night.